What's up, Borough podcast fans? Got another episode here for you. Let's get through these commercials and we'll jump right into it. Guys, we are brought to you by Municipal Land Survey. You can reach them at 631-345-2658. Hit them up for any land surveying needs, all that good stuff. Fences, pools, building new houses, property lines, whatever you could possibly need a land survey for, they're your people to call. We are also brought to you by AS Engineering Services, a full-scale engineering and architectural firm. You can hit them up at 631-560-0259 or www.asengineeringservices.com. So say you just hit up Municipal Land Survey and now you need to build something on that property. AS Engineering Services is your people to call. You can check out their website for a lot of their cool design ideas, projects that they've worked on, renovations, complete rebuilds, brand new projects, commercial, residential, anything that you want to do, they can help you. And last but not least, we have a new sponsor, Keto Fresh. This is actually a company that I started recently. We're just in the process of getting off the ground. This is a ketogenic meal delivery service. You could follow us on keto.fresh.ny to follow along as I start this new business and get this thing going. You can see some of the meals that I make and stay on the lookout for the grand opening of the business. Guys, this episode is a little departure from our norm. We wanted to change it up a little bit. Typically we are business owners, a lot of comedy, a lot of fun. This episode, we have two gentlemen on that are a little older than ourselves, the hosts, and lived through a very different time on Long Island. We have Eric and Mark on the podcast. One is a black gentleman, one is a Puerto Rican gentleman. So we really brought them on to discuss their view on race on Long Island, racism in general, and also the turns that Long Island is making. It's a very interesting podcast. We kept it light and serious, so it's real informational and real eye-opening, but also not too serious where you guys are going to want to slit your wrist or anything like that. So it's very educational, very interesting. Give it a listen. Hope you enjoy it. Alright guys, we're live. Let's get into it.
Borough podcast. D-Rock,
Yogs,
Eric, Skanga,
and our guests,
Eric,
Mark.
So this is a departure from our normal podcast, I guess you could say. In a good way, though. In a good way. I met Eric. We worked together loosely, right? Well, yeah. Not officially, but yeah. So you're a contractor at the school I work at,
right?
And
Dave's my boss.
I'm not your boss.
He's no one's boss.
I'm nobody's boss. I'm just the guy with the cell phone that answers it. But Eric comes in and does work at the school, and people that come and work there that are cool are few and far between, right? And so it's pretty fair, right?
On my end too.
Yeah. Most people aren't like, they're not sociable and they're kind of jerky. So Eric was cool, and
wait. You're not sociable and you're kind of jerky. How do you
No, I'm jerky, but I'm sociable. That's the difference. I'm a fucking asshole, but I know how to socialize. That's the difference.
So what you're telling me is, when you have a problem that you can't fix, you call him up.
No.
Eric, he's like that special contractor that they bring in when the work's too hard for the regular staff.
No. I wish that was the case. No. Eric installs the smart boards in the school.
Gotcha.
We upgraded all these old smart boards, and he comes in and installs all the boards, the projectors, and everything like that. But also a pretty technically savvy guy, so he saves me a lot of work, and in turn, I save him work. I do all the legwork. I'll take all the boards and the projectors, I'll stage them in the rooms when he's coming and coordinate well. And I just kind of thought that was what you're supposed to do. And he was like, dude, you're the only person that moves any of this shit for us,
But you're right, you are supposed to do that, but no one does it.
That's just, it's my work ethic. I'm just fucking,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I get there at 3 usually, and I don't start work until 4:35 because I'm moving stuff around. How come you're not done? Well,
Because I have to do double work.
right.
So I set all the shit up, and I guess we had a good working relationship. Because of that, we got a lot of shit done for the school, which makes me look good. And my boss loves him too because of it. Anyway, we got to kicking it one day. Eric's a DJ, right? You're a DJ?
So is he.
You're a DJ also, Mark?
Yep.
Right, nice. You guys work together?
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Okay.
partners.
Sorry to hear that.
Yes, okay.
But
In the professional sense, not in the triangle sense.
But I'm working on it.
I live with Skanga and Yarbs, and I tell them both all the time. The second one of them gives me a boner, it's over. Because we've lived together for 3 years, we haven't fought once, and you just don't do it for me.
And I'm working on that too.
Yeah. I feel like I'd be a much happier guy.
Yeah, for real.
But
Think about how much money you'd save on like bar tabs going out to try to meet girls.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you know how much he drinks?
Oh, you'd have to cover half Skangas then if you guys were together.
I actually like the whole argument about bar tabs and sharing clothes doesn't work for me because Yarbrough's a fucking giant and Skang's bigger than I am, so I can't even inherit the fucking wardrobe.
You can get chubby again.
That's not gonna happen. Someone's got to look good in this relationship. It's you. If I get chubby, I'm not gonna look good. Anyway, Eric was cool, and I started hanging out in the room one day while he was working. We got to bullshit, and this was like right around the time Trump was making his return, and we got to bullshitting. And this was the real reason I wanted you to have you come on. I mean, you're cool too, in general. You're a cool guy, so.
In general.
But more than, oh, everyone's got faults.
I have my moments.
We got into a pretty cool conversation that I wanted to elaborate on. I don't remember exactly how the conversation got started, but we started talking about Trump and everything, and I was like, we were
talking about Trump, and I was talking about what he did in the 70s with his apartment buildings in the city.
right.
That's how we ended up on it.
And that led into how it's kind of given rise to like racism kind of making its way back, and you said how it kind of reminded you of growing up on Long Island, and I was kind of like, what?
Yeah, and I was surprised by that. And I was just like,
Yeah, well, how old are you? You react like a woman? Come on.
46.
46. So, yeah, we're separated by 12 years, so you grew up on Long Island before any of our time.
Right.
That so there's a piece of time that you can recollect that we missed that I wasn't aware of. Like, and I remember in the conversation saying to him, like, when you started explaining to me about the racism that was on Long Island that I was unaware of, I was like, it kind of makes sense because Long Island's the most segregated area in all of America, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until you told me this afternoon when
Yeah.
you were explaining what was going on today.
Yeah, and a lot of it is by design. Like, I don't know how many people are familiar with like Robert Moses and how he designed the state parkway system and the bridges being low to keep the buses out because they didn't want the buses coming out here with black
See, I
people.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and also a lot of the New Deal under Roosevelt was designed. They designed all the Section 8 housing and all that stuff to put minorities all in one group in one area.
Not that anybody would ever admit those things.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, it's in it's on the internet. But
I mean, if you look no further than like right down the road, we're right next to Bellport.
Right.
I mean, Bellport, you got the train tracks that runs like basically right through the middle. And I think I lived out here for probably the better part of 20 years before I realized that there's something called Bellport Village where there's like all these like
multi-million-dollar homes,
crazy
and
houses.
It's insane.
And like I never realized it. And I was working at a club one night and someone pulled up in a Rolls Royce.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's a crazy car. I was like probably I was like 21, 22. It was one of the first times I'd ever seen one in real life. And I was like, oh, where does that guy from? And they're like, oh, he's from Bellport Village. And I'm like, I like didn't understand at first. I'm like, what do you mean he's from Bellport Village? Like, oh no, it's nice there. And I'm like, what do you mean nice? Like, I don't even know what Rolls Royce nice is. Like, that's like some crazy like Hollywood type thing.
Yeah.
and up until that point, you thought Bellport. You think North Bellport.
North of the tracks.
No,
That's
yeah.
like
Same
the
thing
only
with Amityville.
Bellport I was
Yeah.
familiar with.
Amityville Village is gorgeous.
Yep.
Freeport as well.
Freeport as well.
Freeport down by the water. I mean, there's
Miracle Mile. It's
Yeah.
the nautical mile. There's housing projects that you can look right at from
Yep.
like any of the bars. And I was saying to Skanga before we had this conversation, I'm like, you know, you think about Long Island, you think about the towns of Long Island, you think about Sayville, Bayport, Huntington, you know, some of the like the whole Gold Coast.
Yeah,
It's
Glen
all
Cove,
white.
Syosset.
You know, then
Oh,
you think
yeah.
about
Just so you know, I'm from Bayport, but I'm not from Bayport. I live in Bayport now, 20 years. But I'm a little bit older than Eric. I'm 53.
A little bit.
But the point of the matter is that I just wanted to mention the fact that I own a house in Bayport. But that's, you know, that's just an opportunity I had. And,
Where are you from originally?
I'm from the Bronx.
okay.
So there's a lot for me when I, you know, if I have an opportunity to share whatever I went through. But I just wanted to mention the fact that I was from Bayport, that I'm from Bayport, and it's a nice place.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Very
And,
nice.
But there's
I'm
not a lot of
I'm
diversity in
very
there, right?
lucky to have I had the opportunity to live there, own a house there, and raise my family there. So just wanted to mention that. That's all, you know, because I don't have any dissension towards it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not. That I don't and haven't acknowledged some of the things that you're mentioning. So
Yeah, if you
it's
think
not
about
a,
it,
it's not a hater factor. It's a reality factor.
it's just reality. But it's a
Yep.
reality that most people, I feel like, maybe not are not aware of. And I wasn't even aware of it until I found out about it. Until you actually, that's
There's
something you really think
generations
about.
of families that have been in a lot of these places, like Bayport. Me knowing, my wife was there even before me.
Yeah,
So you know, but there's a lot of generations in some of these towns that are, you know, handed down,
yeah,
and they are what they are.
right.
And there is some bias. There's a lot of bias.
Oh,
that goes
tons.
on.
I grew up, me and Chris, we grew up in Patchogue, Medford, and I feel like, especially in this area of the South Shore, we are unique in our experience growing up because we grew up in Patchogue, Medford, and the Patchogue Medford School District is one of the more diverse ones on the island. So we went to school with a pretty large amount of diversity. Scan, you did too, and you did too, Eric, with Longwood. We actually had pretty good amount of diversity in our schools coming up. Like, I have friends from Bayport, from Sayville. Like, yeah, we went to school with one black person.
Mhm.
That's it. No Spanish people, no Indian people, nothing. So, you know, that's it. You know, Bayport, Sayville, it's all white people. There's no, you know. And then you think about, on the other side, Wyandanch, CI, Brentwood, North Bellport. What is it? The majority?
It's all black.
Black.
Hispanic.
Yeah. There's a lot of diversity on Long Island, but everybody lives in their own pockets. It's
Right.
like something you don't really think about until you made aware of that fact.
I'm pretty sure the statistic is somewhere between 30 and 40% Hispanic now on Long Island.
Yeah.
I know that it's over
going
30
over,
if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
But again, everybody lives in their own pockets.
It's true,
And that's what makes it segregated.
Unless you're from one of like the real diverse districts, like I don't know, growing up, I went to Longwood. You went to Longwood. We had probably like a third. Is that what you would say, or something around there?
Pretty close to that.
I think.
I mean,
Well, even
I don't know the
even
numbers. but-
Ronkonkoma,
yeah.
you could say is
Well, yeah, Sachem.
very,
Yeah,
very
that's all
diversified
Sachem.
in that sense. You know, you have a real mix. Of
But Sachem wasn't always like that.
people.
Sachem was not always like that.
Well, let's get into that. I want to hear what you grew up with. You know, where you from on Long Island, and what it was like growing up. Because that's what really piqued my interest. Because you know, we got to talking that day. We talked for like probably a solid hour. You told me some pretty mind blowing shit. I feel like it's probably a lot of things that people in our age group
Right.
are not aware of.
And I was, you know what, I was surprised by it, and I didn't know whether I should be upset that you didn't know, or if I should be happy that you didn't know. You know, I didn't know how to take it.
I think in one way you should be happy because it feels like if I don't know that things have improved, I would hope it's
Yeah,
not just an ignorance,
Right,
right?
right.
So I feel like if I don't
think-
know, it's
I
improved
think
to
as
some
we're
degree.
going further, speaking specifically about Long Island, I think it's not a not knowing because of ignorance thing. I think it's a not knowing because we are moving forward.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Long Island does seem to be progressing in the right direction where you know there is people from all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all races that you know kind of
Right.
intermingling and coexisting without really too much issue.
Right.
I just want to bring something up, if I may. We're in Suffolk County. There is a bit of a distinct difference between Suffolk and Nassau because, by default, as time goes on, the population increases and becomes more mixed. So Nassau is probably what Queens was, let's say, for example, a long time ago. And as that starts to, say, spread, now I don't mean that in a negative way, but as time goes on and, you know, you have a mixture of different cultures coming out.
More and more people
but
pushing out.
But we're in Suffolk, which means that we're
We're at the
last
end of the
ones.
line,
We're at the
yeah.
end of the line,
Yeah.
right. So I just wanted to make that point, because there is a distinct difference with Suffolk County. But Nassau County has its issues as well in different ways, probably more money-oriented.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I know a lot, family members and stuff that lived in Nassau County and you know, had a lot to do with, you know, really wealthy areas. And what I've noticed in Nassau County, it's more segregated because of money, and not the color of your skin or not your, you know, your ethnicity or anything like that.
Right.
It's about how much money you have, and that's
it.
really what separates the people in the, you know, in Nassau County is it's all how much you're bringing in a year. Like that. That's what I've noticed out there, you know, heavily.
So we moved out. My family moved out here in '74 from Queens, and we moved on into Central Islip. The block we moved on was just built.
How old are you?
I was 4.
Okay.
My brother was 7. My older sister was 8. So when we got here, the street didn't really exist. It was still dirt. There was maybe 4 other families on there. 2 of them were Puerto Rican. The rest were white. Our next door neighbor was a white family. And they didn't want us there. So the next door neighbor, I'm not going to use his name, I'll change his name to Harry. Harry sent around a petition to all the rest of the neighbors to get us off the block and out of the neighborhood. It didn't work, but that's what he ended up doing. Along with that, if you go into my block, my mother's block, most of the houses have the living rooms in the front of the house. Ours is in the back of the house. Because people used to come up to our driveway and in front of our house, turn their headlights on bright, and shine them through our windows, trying to annoy us to get out of there. So my parents had to build another room onto the back of the house. Yeah. Once Harry found out that my father was a cop, everything suddenly changed with Harry. You know, he's not a dirty, you know, Nigger. You know, he's a cop. And he tried to have beers with him, try to hang out with him, but, you know, at that point my father didn't want anything to do with him.
Burned the bridge.
Right. It was right down. His wife was nice. It's an amazing dichotomy. She was sweet. She had no problem with us whatsoever, but he had an issue with us. So that was just the beginning of the problems. My brother got jumped. They beat him up so bad that he put him in the hospital. His head was swollen, maybe twice the size.
He was still a kid, or when he was?
He was still a kid. Yeah.
How old was he?
If I remember, then he had to have been maybe his young teens, early teens. My parents said that he got sick. It wasn't until years later that I finally put the pieces together and I said, "Oh,
Oh, you didn't really know. Right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah." So, but as time went on, things got better. I don't know if it's because I just didn't care anymore. Because as I got older, I got bigger, and as I got bigger,
You're not a small guy.
right, no one really bothered me, so I didn't really notice as much anymore. My high school was pretty much mixed, but it was pretty much black, white, Puerto Rican, Dominican. That was it. There were no other Hispanic that were majors, majorities. Is that the same way it was in Hopog? Well, in Hopog it was just you.
Very good. That's why I hung out at CI.
That's why you came over here. Okay.
CI High School was my hangout.
So, what was... When you came from the Bronx, you went to Hopog.
We're talking about Long Island.
No.
Well, what I'm saying is that I grew up in the Hunts Point area of the Bronx. If you're not familiar with it,
Yeah,
when I was growing up there, it wasn't great. I lived not too far from the Spofford home. Point is that it was a rough area. It's always been. I think today it's probably it's changed, probably for the better. but it's gone through a lot of phases. I moved from there into the Riverdale, Kingsbridge area, which is predominantly Irish, Polish, Italian, if you will. So it's a predominantly white area. And had a lot of experiences there. That would be in the Bronx. That would be the upper part of the Bronx heading towards Yonkers, the upper west side of the Bronx.
Where you can't live through it.
And had some experiences there as well. But one of the reasons why I didn't experience too much of discrimination issues is because of my appearance. And not being a typical Puerto Rican. Of course, I am Puerto Rican. Didn't mention that before, but this is, and you always, aside from developing a chip on your shoulder, you are aware of your surroundings. You know that there are issues with people, and once they find out, let's say that you're different than they are, if you don't mind the expression, that's when issues start to ensue. Again, I have to say that I'm not atypical, in appearance-wise, and maybe in many other ways. Whether it be well-spoken, whether it be diction, whatever it is, was never easily known that I was Hispanic. Nor were my parents, for that matter, and they're straight from Puerto Rico. But they were also very well spoken. So the point is that I went through some discrimination issues in the Bronx. Moving to Hop Hog in 1980, can tell you that when I went to school, I was approached, mainly because I was new. Long Island, Suffolk County, place like Hop Hog, not the smallest school district, but yet very closely knit. When you grow up with people since kindergarten, there's a cliques everywhere, and you're just an outsider.
How old were you?
We had a very small population of blacks and Hispanics in the. I'm sorry.
How old were you when you moved there?
I was 16.
Okay.
So I went to Hop Hog High School. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that. But yeah, I was 16. Excuse me. So I was approached mainly because I was new, and I chose to hang out with people I felt comfortable with. And there was a section of the school where we all congregated, call it the minorities. It was majority, 99% of us were black and Hispanic. So there was a small population in Hop Hog. But point is, I was approached by one of the football players. We didn't have this jock head thing in the city, so that was kind of new to me. But I got it, I understood it. And so then you had the jocks, the heads, and then you had us. So we were somewhere, like wherever, we weren't necessarily athletes, and we weren't necessarily, so-called druggies or whatever you want to call it. But, so I had been approached. I dealt with it. Nothing major. I made my stance. Someone said to me, you're from the city, I bet you think you're all this and that. Coming out of left field. Presumptuous on his part, and I confronted it. It was we didn't fight or anything like that. Then we wound up becoming friends after that. But the issue there is that I was approached. Moving forward, at some point, someone wrote "spick" on my in front of my driveway, where my parents' house is. Excuse me. I think it even made the news. Yeah. We don't know where that came from. It happened. It was.
This is why we get along.
What do you call? Is there a name for that?
We call it.
It's interracial discrimination somehow. I don't know. No, but that was a bit shocking. And footnote: my brother, in around that same time in 1980, owned a house and lived with his wife and child, right, couple of houses away from Eric. No issues regarding this matter. But
by then it had changed.
But so It was much later on, of course. Whatever, it was 5, 10 years later, whatever it was. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. So my brother was Eric's neighbor
And what I don't understand,
for a bit of time.
like I said, when we moved on the block, there were Puerto Rican families there already. They didn't bother them, which always boggles my mind. And just today, I still have no idea why it was. They were
Selective
okay,
racism.
right?
or-
Yeah. I just don't get it.
Do you think it had to do with that like old mentality that I think sprung up? I don't know if it was in like the 50s or 60s, where they would like scare everybody into moving out and then selling their houses real cheap if they thought the neighborhood was gonna like turn into like a bad neighborhood, like that type of like thought, like some you hear about now, like. You hear about it now happening in the olden days in like the real estate industry, how they'd come in and say, oh, this block, everything's going to go downhill,
Right.
and you better sell your house quick. And then the realtors are making their 4 or 5% on each sale of the house, and they're making the bank.
7 to 10 back then.
7 to 10, but I'm sure, yeah, you know what?
Because I did real estate.
Oh, gotcha.
He's like, I use that tactic.
I don't know.
He's like,
That's
I
how
was
you
the
got
one
it.
that you wrote. So he's throwing out a position. They're trying to make a sale. He's like, Harry, I'm going to give you 1% of the 7 for each sale.
You see
Right.
them next door?
It's called a finder's fee. So
I'm not sure because the block was brand new, like I said. I mean,
Yeah.
the road wasn't even paved yet.
That must have been surreal, moving into like a neighborhood with his dirt roads.
Right. I barely remember it because I was so young, but I do remember there being nothing there. We didn't even have any grass at that point.
but there was a sense of, I say resistance. I don't know that I'd like to call it prejudice, even though that's really what it was. In school, to some extent, and I was okay with, I didn't really get into too many conflicts. But so as far as incidents, one time my friends and I were playing video games in the drugstore on Vets Highway, and our group was consisted of, if you believe it or not, it was our clique was mostly white friends, and then there were the blacks and Hispanics, but we were just all friends. Really, nobody had issue with it. The point is that I was approached by one of the people that worked in the store. I don't remember exactly why, and I felt, with this so-called chip on my shoulder, I felt that I was being singled out, and I lashed out. It wasn't the right way to handle it. I was 16, 17 at the time, and I handled it poorly. So I lashed out at the employee. So like an idiot, I go back another time. And when I say I lashed out, I mean I really let loose. I just in those times there was people were quick. You don't see that today. People were quick to defend themselves in a big way.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of allowance for that,
Right,
expression.
There's more of a tolerance.
For that kind of expression.
Now it's everything's, I'm going to sue you. Or
Right. You have to be very careful
yeah.
today,
Right.
and there's, you have cameras and you have all these things, and you have to be accountable. But I lashed out. It wasn't a nice thing to do. The young lady, she was young, as was I, but I was in defense mode, and I don't. Well, let's say this. She called me a spick, and I just went bananas. I went nuts. I went back again like an idiot, and they called the cops. So I wound up going to court for this, and I had to get a lawyer. Bottom line is that nobody wanted to admit the truth about what really happened, so they never showed up, and it was dismissed. But who needs that headache?
Yeah.
I was wrong in what I did. And the cop, even when the cop approached me, and of course you can pretty much know, you can tell that here's a white Suffolk cop, and call it what it is. Basically looking at me like we're gonna make an example out of you, so to speak. So, and the rest is history. But so it was dismissed. My guess, and I was 17, was that they just didn't want to admit what had happened, because once it came out that I was being discriminated against, I think it painted a different picture.
Business owner, that's going to hurt
in spite of my actions.
Right.
So, and I was wrong, and I know that I was wrong, and I'm remorseful for it. But I did at the time what I thought was defending myself.
Right.
So on that
Product
level,
of the environment.
but what?
It's product of the environment.
Yeah, I could make that case. I could make that case, but I still don't condone. I honestly, my person doesn't condone it.
Right.
But I was young. You say I'm making excuses or whatever. It was maybe a combination of listen, you could have handled it better, but maybe you were somewhat a victim of circumstance, so to speak.
The circumstances.
When somebody calls you an ethnic slur, that's pretty rough on the emotions.
Absolutely. I'm one to understand that, and like you're saying, your outward appearance. So I'm half black. My dad's black, so I've dealt with kind of issues like that from both sides.
Right.
Even being with the black side of my family in certain areas where I'm the only white person there, people are like, what the fuck is what's going on here? So I've dealt with it on both sides, and
I think it happens. I think it happens a lot when people assume that you're one thing, and then they divulge their feelings about something, and it happens to be against your race.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
realize, like,
and now it's like, wow, like, do I say something? And it's never right to be a sellout. It's never right. So somewhere along the line, you might come out and say, well, listen, I'm Spanish. And unfortunately, that changes the friendship. If there is one, it changes the dynamics of the atmosphere. And you eventually make a choice, and everybody else does. Yeah. Hey, do we embrace this situation, or do we just be true to ourselves and say, you know what, I just don't like hanging out with Puerto Ricans, and I don't like hanging out with white people that don't like Puerto Ricans. And then you take a stance, and then you move forward based on how you feel you want to run yourself. How you want to live your life.
Yeah, it's all a choice that people make, and not that you have to stick to one thing and you can't change, but be true to who you are. Mm-hmm. Like that's it for everyone. Like you could think what you want, do what you want. It's when you cross the line into forcing your opinion on someone else, or forcing your views, or becoming violent. That's really where the problems are. People have to think whatever they want. Like look at Mormons and stuff like people think all kinds of stuff.
It's crazy shit.
No, I love what I love the best is when people say, "Are you 100% Puerto Rican?" Let me. I'm a little bit more arrogant, and I'm a little bit more hard and fast nowadays. It's like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Like, are you? It's like come on, people.
Do other Hispanic people ask you that, or like white people, or just everyone?
I get it. It's no surprise that throughout my life there's been an identity issue because of my appearance, and because of how people and how society
perceive you.
Not to make it into that, but I'm saying how people perceive you, how you're accepted. Everybody wants to be accepted, and then you start to second guess yourself. And then when you start to become more educated on things, then you have to you make choices in how you want to handle these types of situations. And I got to a point where, listen, hey, this is, I am, but there's been identity issues throughout my entire life. Like I said, I'm 53 now, so I've been through quite a bit. But as far as this subject is concerned, been through some stuff out here, but those were the kind of the two major things that happened, and we're talking 1980 through, let's say, 83 roughly, where these things happen. So
it just reminded me about Central Iceland. It was divided, which I forgot all about. There was a section there we lived, which is close to Hot Park, which is close to his mother's house. Then there across the tracks was Lowell, and that's where all of the dirty blacks lives, quotations. And then there was another section called the New Development, which is where all the other blacks lived. So Central Iceland was divided. Atlantia came from Central Islip.
Okay.
The whites didn't want to be a part of Central Islip, so they made
Their own town.
their own town.
Now,
Right.
Lowell is the one that Lowell runs north-south,
Lowell runs north-south.
and they're all. My aunt used to live off Lowell. One of the blocks is like a Plaza of the Chinese. Are all the names of trees of the roads?
Yes.
They're all named after trees, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. Yeah, I remember. I remember going over that area. She had a crack house across the street from her house, and like they had like a
Listen, I used to-
drive-through window, which like in the front of the house. It was a walk-up. It was a walk-up window, I guess you would call it. But we used to watch. We used to watch it all day and all night.
Yeah. And then it was Carlton Park.
Carlton Park.
Yeah, Carlton Park was the worst part of Central Islip. It was the scariest part of Central Islip. I mean, there were houses there that had. The one I remember is there's a house. It was a garage. Instead of a garage door, there was a sheet over it. There were no doors in the house whatsoever. And I think people were living in there, but I'm not sure.
That I think that area, a lot of these areas, in you could talk about Bellport. I know Suffolk very well in that regard, and talk about areas because I used to inspect a lot of houses. And I was just telling Eric on the way here that I know these streets very well because I used to do a lot of inspections here. So what I'm saying is that this area along, and I'm sure it's changed a bit. I even understand that the government was stepping in to subsidize rebuilding some things. The point is that some of these houses were built, I believe, for military people coming back from the war. And even though as much as you have bungalows that were converted into houses or small houses, putting in heat and stuff on Long Island in general, but these particular areas, they were these small 2-bedroom houses that you probably still have a lot of here down the block here.
Yep, right over Station Road.
Right. And it's about affordability. It's about, but I think what I'm saying is that they built these houses for these military people coming from, and it was a matter of being able to afford and to have, to develop the community development. And with that, you talk about the division of areas. And you may be very well aware that there's a law when they make communities that they have to make some houses affordable because it's a community development issue where they can't gentrify and keep make prices so high that other people that, let's just say that the income issue is really, I think, the main thing.
Right.
Not so much the ethnicity, but their income, so that people can integrate, and I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely, I think it's
but a lot of these smaller houses, and then unfortunately what happens is where people may buy up several houses, become landlords, absentee landlords, and blah blah blah, and there you go, and then as the saying says, there goes the neighborhood.
Right, there comes Section 8.
And then people don't take care of their properties, and then I blame personally, being in the business that I was in, I think in part the towns have a responsibility for upkeep, and I think the townships take the position that we're not making a lot of money on these taxes from these houses, so why should we pave the streets? We'll put them on the back end or the end of the line. I don't know that to be exactly true. It's a bit of an ignorant statement, but meaning I don't have the facts to back it up.
Right.
But my guess is that
we see it every day.
Is that they don't maintain, and they don't. They should more so. They should require the owners of the properties to maintain their properties, and they let it fall by the wayside because I think in the long run they feel that just let it burn itself, so to speak.
Yeah.
Let them. They don't want to take care of it. Why should we step in? You go to other states, you go to other places. They don't put up with that.
No.
They want their properties to look nice, or rather, when people down, I can't speak for all the areas, but I've been to other places, and you drive down the street and you don't see what you see.
No,
here.
not at all. And especially on even driving through, say like Connecticut and stuff like that, down the highways. There's no garbage on the side of the road. I don't know if it's just the people or the state or the government or who. It's like night and day. Like you walk or you drive down the expressway and it's like the apocalypse is going on outside. There's just bags of garbage. I'm like, what is someone just driving 65 miles an hour and just throwing garbage out the window? Like where does from, and then no one cleans it up. It just stays there.
Yeah.
And being someone who did code enforcement, and that was basically the what I did, and working for East Hampton for a period of time, and I was only there 4 months.
Oh, they're real strict.
I was never in East, being a city person and living here and making my life here. I was never, outside of going to the beaches, I was never really into going to Montauk so much so I really didn't know much about it. And what I learned was they're in their own world out there.
Oh yeah,
It's not really that much of an extension of what we have here in this part of Suffolk County.
It's like a whole different.
It's a bubble.
Yeah,
it's a total bubble.
And what's real crazy is, you brought up East Hampton. East Hampton is a very, very odd place because there is a section of East Hampton that's literally trailer parks. It's just like the poorest of the poor.
Right.
And then you go 2 minutes down the road and you can't buy a cup of coffee for less than like $15. But where does that come? Like that,
right.
I don't know if there's anywhere like that in the world. Like in East Hampton,
and it's not even. I have to say, it's not even a color thing.
No,
it's a class, or rather,
a money
it's
thing.
a class thing in terms of middle class versus lower class.
Because it's just as many white Irish and stuff like the people that are busting the dishes and stuff like that. They don't care about the color of your skin.
Right.
It's how much money you have and you make. Like that. That's what it is out there, and it's very strange.
It's very different out there.
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make is that doing the job that I did, they're the only ones that I know that actually patrol to give people violations. Where we are right at this moment, the only way you're going to get a violation is if somebody makes a complaint and they send someone to investigate.
Yeah.
But they don't have people. They don't have the manpower for this kind of population and density
To stay on top.
to stay on top
No
of
way.
things. So they have to do it as rather complaint driven. Whereas East Hampton, they made us have to go and look for things, which is a little odd for me because I prefer the more complaint driven. Not that they don't, because people do have a lot of complaints, but they also wanted us to look for problems, which I think is a little much. They call it the land of no out there.
Yeah, I got a ticket in Southampton. I used to do pools out there, and we were emptying a pool to change the liner, and the yard was like kind of on a hill. So all the water we were emptying out of the pool went down this hill and just ran into the street and then ran into a dead end. Didn't go on anybody's property. There was no houses over there.
Right.
One of those guys, all of a sudden there's 2 cops walking into the backyard writing me tickets.
When you're doing, let's say you're doing construction on a house, you're supposed to have the orange plastic fencing around where if you're digging or whatever the work's going on. Any work that's let's say a painter's doing something, we would have to. They would make us, meaning that was what we were supposed to do, to approach these people. And I have to be honest with you, I think that's shitty. I think it's really shitty because it's. To have a local law like that, it just is really it's just disconcerting for me. I'm sorry. To have to bother a guy that's paid to do some paint work. Now, if your fence is, meaning like these temporary fences, and you're doing construction, I'm supposed to go. Now, rightfully so. If your work is creating a danger for the public, that's one thing. Yeah. But generally,
just to bust balls.
You're really just looking for problems. It's like you're nitpicking. And then the funny thing is, it's a notice. They wind up going to court, and half the time, nothing is actually done about it in the sense of enforcement. Meaning, they wind up not having to pay a fine. They might pay their lawyer, but half the time they get away with it. Meaning, we're spinning wheels.
Yeah,
we're just sending the message that, hey, we're watching you, but in the end, if you're smart enough, nothing's really going to happen to you.
And you're generating some revenue because you have to hire some local attorney probably that's from out there.
But it also justifies our existence as code enforcement people.
I know that a bunch of the police departments are entirely self-financed out there.
Almost all of them,
by the tickets that they write. And
wow.
Quogue, East Quogue. I worked out there for the better, whatever. Okay, Quogue.
He's doing for a second. Oh,
But I used to live out there over the summer because I worked out there. I would do seasonal work out there. So I would stay out there each summer for 2 or 3 months, and then in the winter come back here and then do construction. But everybody knew if you were driving through Quag or Quogue or anything with a Og at the end of it, you legitimately go the speed limit. Like, I've been in cars that have gotten pulled over and given tickets for going 6 miles an hour over the speed limit and been given tickets for reckless driving because the tires touched the middle lines on like a road that had no other cars on it.
Right.
Like in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And they're
Well, obviously, they don't have enough to do.
No, that's what it is. They don't have enough to do.
They have to justify their existence.
And they have to. They say they don't have quotas, but they all know they have a certain amount of money that they probably have to bring in to justify their position. And the people that live out there full time, they don't want more of their tax dollars going to pay these employees money, the police officers and code enforcement.
So they have to generate their own.
So they have to generate their own. When I worked at nightclubs out there, and the nightclubs literally would have between 4 and 8 police cars in the front all the time. They would walk through the parking lots of the nightclubs, and they would write everyone tickets that might have they'd look at every single car, no inspection, no registration. You got tickets on the way out. Then they're out there spying on the people to see if somebody looks a little wobbly to give them a DWI.
And these are political things that are the politicians are being pressured by, supposedly pressured by the public.
Well,
hey, you got to do something about this. You need to control it. And they're just trying to show their work too.
Yeah, I'll say this: that it happened at some of the places I worked, and then other places I worked, it was like a free for all, whatever you want to do, and it sort of had to do with like who was getting paid.
Right.
Sometimes the fire marshal comes to visit you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then I worked at other places that the fire marshal never came to at all, ever.
Right.
And all these like nightclubs were within sometimes 5 minutes of each other, and you'd be at one place one night, and the fire marshal would be there counting the people in there with one of the little clickers, and then you go to the other place, and you couldn't even like breathe inside the club because it was packed wall to wall. But they had given the guy an envelope the week before.
That's totally political. But
that's what happened to the OBI. That's how the OBI got shut down.
I've heard that for a time period, it was like a quarter of the kids on Long Island were products of the OBI. That's what I think my uncle used to say.
It was a happening spot. It was a good spot. I have to admit.
I remember driving past that as a child. I was never old enough to actually go there, but always thinking like, oh, I can't wait to go to that place. That place looks awesome. And then it closed down when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't even know this place. What is this place?
Oak Beach Inn. It was our club.
The biggest club. It was gigantic.
They had the pirate ship.
Right on off the Robert Moses.
No, off of
Causeway, right?
Ocean Park.
Ocean Park. Okay. But you mentioned clubs, and me being a DJ and starting at a very young age, and we're talking about race, and we're talking about racism. It was interesting being a DJ, and I mentioned the fact that when I say hybrid, meaning identity issues, sometimes you got to play the card that plays best for you. And I became a person that's like, listen, I'm not interested in this or that. I just want to get a job.
Someone touched you.
I just want to get it. I'm just looking to do my thing as a DJ, and bottom line is, if it came down to it, I was never trying to hide my ethnicity, but nobody ever asked, and that's because of my appearance. My point is that I experienced a few things along the way, nothing crazy, with nightclubs. And when you're on the inside of the nightclub, meaning your staff, and you're now on that side of it, you get to see a lot of things in terms of how they run the club, and what's the right word, just discrimination against patrons, and how they treat the people. And I've seen a lot of that go on too. And because of what I mentioned already, I got to hear a lot of stuff because people felt comfortable talking in front of me.
You look like a light-skinned Italian guy.
I do, right? And then, let's just say I have a lot of different types of friends. My wife is Puerto Rican, And again, very, very. You might even think she's Jewish if you wanted to say a stereotype, because of the way she speaks, because she's from Brooklyn, because her upbringing. So I get a lot of gestures from my friends, and I get a lot of people that say, "Hey, the way you talk, this and that. It's like you sound Italian." A lot of DJ friends of mine were Italian, but I've had many, it sounds like almost cliche-ish, but my friends, it never mattered to me. It just didn't matter to me. So I have so many different influences of what make up my personality and how I express myself, and there was some. So to make the point about that, a lot of whites would ask me to say, "Well, you look white." Or you look whatever they might say that maybe you look Italian, but they would never think that I was Spanish.
And that really amazes me because I can see it.
Right, and then to the Hispanics, this is a tough thing for a person. I'm being honest. I had to deal with this. To my Hispanic counterparts, I was they would not. It's like I had to tell them that I was Puerto Rican, and they were just not very receptive, even when I told them that I was Puerto Rican, unless the person themselves was a genuine person, didn't give a shit,
Right.
and then that made the difference. But people shied away, and that's just we're products of how we're raised. And I don't totally blame them, as much as people need to take ownership of who they are. Their upbringing has a lot to do with it, so I blame that, because it's really not their fault. We're taught things.
Yeah,
their parents and their people around them were prejudiced, so that's the mindset that they had. I had my own prejudices. I'm not a non-prejudiced person.
Everyone does. No, I don't care who
and that's
you are,
because
you
of what I
have-
was taught. Meaning, what people said growing up. We're talking about whether it be nowadays. You're talking about preference. Sexual preference. Growing up, we had a certain mindset, and it was dead against these things. Whether you were complacent about it or not didn't matter. You had to give you had to let people know I'm macho and this is how I am. But that's again just an example of how people are taught.
Right,
from
your environment.
It's
pushed on you. It's what you grow up in. It's what you learn from a young age, and maybe you don't 100% agree with that, but sometimes when that's all you're surrounded by, it's hard not to allow it to influence you in some way.
Right. Because when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of white friends because I didn't really like white people back then. Most of my friends were Puerto Rican. Because, like I said, the black people lived on the other side of town, and it was only Puerto Ricans and whites by me. The whites I didn't get along with, so I was with the Puerto Ricans. So I guess that's why I always
You were
knew.
just lazy. You didn't want to go.
Yeah, I didn't want to walk.
Wait, 2-3
Take your
blocks
bike
down.
over,
I'm not going
ride over the tracks.
Yeah, I'm not going over there. It's crazy down there.
Let me make do with what I got. There's only cornflakes. I'm going to eat cornflakes.
Exactly.
I'm not going to buy Cheerios. I'm not going to the store.
Right. It was horrible.
What I always find really interesting, I probably didn't even realize this until I was in my 20s, and I was working with a gentleman from Western Pennsylvania, and he started telling me about the first time he met a Jew. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I was in my 30s." And I'm like, "So what do you mean?" He said, "Oh, well, we always had this statement. Oh, you could Jew someone. It meant like sort of like being cheap or like screwing them out of something."
Right.
He's like, "But none of us had ever seen any Jews." and like as like a New Yorker,
You're like, wait, what?
That's another really bad thing. That's you talk about. Jewish people and how they're discriminated against.
As a New Yorker,
that's just as bad.
As a New Yorker,
really
like
is.
I know Puerto Ricans, I know Dominicans. Like I can tell you, I can specify what part of China you're from based upon looking at you. I know my Asians. Like we've at least encountered. I like Asian women, but like we at least are exposed to people from pretty much everywhere on the entire planet, and it sort of like perplexes me, and I have to like take myself back a moment once in a while when I hear about racism existing in like other parts of the country where maybe you don't really have exposure to different cultures. Like here, like I think you bring up Puerto Ricans. My best friend looks similar to you. Nikki Vegas is Puerto Rican, and his mom looks like she came from Sweden until she starts to speak, and then you're like, holy moly, this lady, don't hit me, don't hurt me. She starts swearing at you if you do something bad. You just don't realize that other people aren't really accustomed to seeing other, maybe like you live in an Irish area of Western Pennsylvania or a German area, and really that's all you're accustomed to. And maybe you have your token minority here or there that just so happens to live in like your area, but that's sort of like the extent of it. And maybe you see people of different races or ethnicities when you're at the mall, but you're not really friends with them. And I don't really know. I mean, I guess if you're from like a real waspy area of like the Gold Coast on Long Island, you might not be exposed to anything. But like, I don't know, growing up in Longwood, like, I don't know, we knew everybody.
You're gonna love this. I think you're gonna love this.
Okay.
I hope it's a long
I met a girl in high school. Sweet girl. She looked more Puerto Rican than I did because she was Italian, and just like Puerto Ricans and just like a lot of ethnic groups, there are many different shades, and within those groups, we know that there's discrimination because of the tone of your skin and so forth and so on. It goes true for blacks, African Americans.
I don't like that word.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I grew up saying blacks. I'm going to say blacks.
The funniest thing.
I have no issue with saying blacks
because anyone of African descent or however you want to say, like you ask them like,
none of it should ever matter.
It doesn't really matter, but like I don't know where my family is from in Africa. I don't fucking know.
And it really, and in this, obviously it really should. None of it should really matter with people, right? But yeah. So anyway, and Louise, if you're out there and you hear this, I'm talking about you. Let me tell you the sweetest girl, and. We dated for a short time, and I started to drive at that time. I was so crazy excited that I got my license, moving from the city, and I was of age, and I got my license, and that was a big deal. But here's the thing, and the drinking age back then was only 18. Well, of course, I was drinking at 14. But nonetheless, and then this was a shocker, okay? I was driving around, and I had already had friends in, people that my family knew in Central Islip. They were Puerto Rican, whatever. So I had cousins in Brentwood, but I went to Hop Hog High School. So I mentioned to her, I said, why don't we take a ride over to my cousin's house over in Brentwood? And her eyes opened up. She was from Hop Hog, of course. Her eyes opened up this big. And she said, I've never been to Brentwood. She was deathly afraid to go to Brentwood. I think what I'm trying to say is that there are people, the reason why I make this is always sticks in my head. She lived in Hop Hog her entire life, had never set foot in Brentwood.
Which is,
I'm sure that
in certain areas,
I'm sure it's the same for a lot
across the street. You're in Brentwood.
Maybe there was a lot of people like that, but that was a bit of a shocker to me. Like I'm saying, I could never get past that. You live right here, and you're gonna just flat out tell me you've never set foot in Brentwood. I don't know how that sounds.
I didn't go to Brentwood either, being in CI, because back then CI and Brentwood were fighting.
Okay.
It was a rare thing for me to end up in Brentwood, and I was usually driving through.
Right. But at least you drove through.
On 111, You drove through.
No, but the point is that I was shocked. I don't know what that sounds like. I don't know what it means when I say it. But I was literally shocked, and I'll never forget that. And I understood it, to a point, and then I really didn't understand it. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
You've never been to... Yeah. But whatever, it is what it is.
There are certain people that
amazing
just
live
in their own bubble, that they're happy with where they are, and that's all they want to experience. And, and I don't know if it's a negative thing or a fear thing, or they're just content in what they are, and you know, not everyone wants the experience of it. You know,
Right.
Some people are just happy eating, you know, their chicken and their steamed broccoli, and that's what they want to eat every day. They don't want to try, you know, Caribbean food. They don't want to try, you know, African food or Asian food. They're just, this is what I like. This is what I know.
I think it's great that people can make their own choices, and I think the real issue is it's okay to have preferences, but don't hate other people. Don't hate other people for their preferences or their origin, for that matter.
Absolutely.
That's the way I see it. Like I like to have the freedom to make my own choices.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think I'm entitled to it. I like to think I'm an okay citizen. I pay taxes, so I should have my choices. But that doesn't mean I need to impose that I don't like, you know, a certain group, whatever that group is. I'm not going to go out there and shout it out to people. And I'm just going to, you know, I know that I have my preferences, but I'm not going to impose
avoid those
it.
situations, and that's it. Like, no one has to. I think that's the biggest thing that, or is one of the biggest problems, is we try to, or society and people try to impose their will upon other people, and you notice it, you know, every 4 years in the political process.
Right.
It's, you know, no, the Republicans are right, or no, the Democrats are right, and it's, hey, you know what, you want to discuss it? Make your point. That's it. Don't try and force it down everyone. If you want to have a discussion, that's fine, but don't try and force me to have the same view as you.
Right.
I have my own view. We can have a conversation about it, and, you know, I can tell you what I like about this, and you can tell me what you like about that, but I don't have to see it your way.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says, you know...
No, there are people out there that
believe.
believe that they have to make it a point to convince you of something because there's a, let's say, a looming issue, or, you know, that we're all headed to some kind of doom. If you don't, you know, you gotta listen to me. You gotta know that, you know, we gotta keep. Let's just say we're talking about, you know, like this BS. I think it's BS, and it's a very touchy subject. We talk about the Mexicans. I gotta be honest with you. I understand some of the issues that people are concerned about, but to go try to make it sound like the world's gonna end. And that's the picture they want to paint. They want to create the rhetoric that if we don't do something about this, we're going to be so bad off in the years to come.
Just like Mexico,
and it's
be
rhetoric.
horrible.
It's they just want to convince because they're so passionate about it.
It's going to be Mad Max.
Right.
You know?
You know, look, his father was a cop, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure there's issues and maybe some stories with that. My father and my brother was a politician.
My father's graduation picture. There's only 2 black guys in there from his police academy, and this was 70.
He was a Nassau cop?
Yeah, 73.
Okay.
I think.
I didn't know that.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprised that there was even 2.
Yeah,
so I was gonna say he was probably the only one. They're probably like, look at us, we're diversified.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't
There was a
believe
big
it.
fear, as much as things were different in the 80s, 70s, 80s, outside of the city, things were very, very different. But there was a big fear of Suffolk County cops, Nassau County cops, because of the issue of bias and prejudice and things like that. So you had, you know, but back then they weren't as, like nowadays they'll pull you over for anything. Back then, if you were unlucky to get pulled over, that's when you had to worry.
No, back then they would do the same thing, especially car 321. Still remember the car.
Okay.
Still remember the car. He'd pull you over for anything. Walking down the street, he'd come and harass you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah. So now we see 321. We know it's different guys, but we still look at it and go, 321. Yeah, exactly.
But I had to fight a lot of inner feelings because my dad was an assemblyman in the Bronx, and you know, he marched with Dr. King. Being Puerto Rican, coming here, a poor family. He overcame a lot of things, self-educated, and got elected, decided to go into politics, did real estate for a while. Really tried a lot of things and decided to get into politics. And with that, he was very passionate about a lot of things and very, very proud to be Puerto Rican. So I want to say that I heard a lot of things somewhat biased coming from my dad, but that I think the difference is maybe like a lot of people that are discriminated against. Two wrongs don't make a right, but you swung first. So therefore, this is my defensive position. It's not right to say that, but you become very defensive. And a lot of my mentality growing up, it got me into fights. It was that, this is my father being at home, listening to, they want to control this. When I say they, you have to really read between the lines.
Yeah.
They want to control the money. They want to control this and the majority that, and so there was a lot of uphill battles with my father deciding to get into politics, and then he represented his people in the Bronx. And when you talk about politics, it's a subject unto itself. But a lot of my own prejudices and biases come from what I heard my father talk about.
That's really where it all comes from. It's all learned. They've done studies to kind of determine, a fear of, color or different things like that.
Well, that's really what it stems from, fear.
It's a fear.
So-called, what
it's
are you
all
afraid of?
learned. There's no biological marker to racism or, racism in general. Like it's a learned thing, and it's luckily because of the information age that we live in now, where even if you are, in wherever, Western Pennsylvania or Montana, or you have access to information and to things that people never had before. So I think, is it ever going to go away completely, racism? No. It just won't. And it won't. And
if it's not the color of your skin,
it'll
it's
be
something else.
Exactly. Right now, it's more religious.
People are stupid.
I think that's
people are fucking stupid. They let themselves get swayed because they can't think for themselves, or they weren't. Somehow they don't think for themselves.
I feel like a lot of people, they need something to make themselves feel better about themselves.
But it's also acceptance too, because the people around them, if they're not in an environment that is, more accepting of diversity, because that's kind of like what we're talking about, I think, and that is the accepting different cultures and blah blah blah, that the people around them resist against it, and then they become a product of that environment.
Yeah, it's all environment.
Chances are they're all feeling bad about themselves together, or wherever they are in life, and they're
lashing out at something else. And what's different? Let's lash out.
I think it's both ends of the spectrum. I think there's a superiority complex issue, and I think there's an inferiority complex issue as well. So
you figure, just contemporarily with the whole the debate with illegal Mexicans coming here, I mean, I always wonder if a lot of these people on television speaking out against them even know any. Like, are they just people from the middle of the country that the factory closed down and there's no jobs left, and they think it's they got to blame somebody. And somebody always needs to get blamed, and the politicians utilize that to move themselves ahead.
It's rhetoric. And people, it's too stupid to think for themselves. So they, and it's like the gang. What's the expression?
Right. You didn't get fired because you were stupid. You got fired because of Mexican.
And I always equated, sometimes I'll hear somebody say I can't get a job. I'll say, my friend, I have some friend. I worked in construction for years. You want a job? And no, I don't want to do it. I got a whole bunch of my friends from Mexico are working for my buddy Kenny right now. He's got a job doing roofs. If you want to go do roofs, it's 85 degrees out.
Right.
I'll get you on a crew by this afternoon if this
it's
make
hot.
a telephone call.
It's too hot out there. I'm made for better things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But I think especially the things going on in the Middle East, I think religion is becoming that new racism, or obviously it's not race, but it's
Just the newest
stereotype,
flavor.
that fear.
Right.
It's becoming that. It's that.
There's always been that.
But
Like you talk about, the Jehovah Witness, they get ridiculed a lot. I'm not a Jehovah Witness. If somebody comes to my door and I need to turn them away, I turn them away. But I'm not. Like, listen, when I was younger, we used to joke around because we were ignorant, and we were buying into the bullshit that all our friends would say, and we'd poke fun at that. But as I got older, more mature, then you realize, come on.
Oh, no, I
But
still
I'm
shoot
just
them
using
away.
them as an example.
I still shoot them away.
Right. And then now more so,
Yeah.
maybe it might be an issue of the
Let me give you the good word. No.
Christian faith that has emerged greatly over time. I'm Catholic personally. I mean, I consider myself a Christian as well, but the born again Christians, to be more specific, and they're discriminated against for their beliefs or whatever. I think it's just so foolish.
I think everyone has a right to believe what they want. Again, it's the don't try and force your beliefs on me.
Right.
Just like you have the right to believe what you want, I also have the right to believe.
Right.
Not
I
what you
think,
want,
and
but
I
it's,
I think that's maybe part. I know we're not talking religion here and all that, and these are tough subjects, all the politics, religion, and race, and all that stuff. But the thing is, I think what happens is that if I had to compare Jehovah Witness to maybe Christian, a Jehovah Witness person, a person that believes in their faith, will try to express what their religion is about because they want you to partake. And the difference, I think, in the perception, as I've seen it, is that Christians are very judgmental, and the approach is totally different. Whereas if you don't do this, then they start in with the and if I had to say, I've seen that I've sensed that, I've felt it, I've experienced it. Whereas just if I had to touch on that subject, but we're talking about bias, and some people do it to themselves. Let's be for real.
True.
Some groups of people do it to themselves, even if they don't realize it or don't mean it, because of what they believe.
Right.
They feel the need to push, but then it kind of holds true for everybody else. Talk about the KKK. They have their beliefs.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it, but I know that somewhere deep inside they really believe this. They really feel that, hey, you got to listen to me. Oh, here goes the train.
Here comes the train.
So yeah, about the KKK. Oh, here comes the train. No, I'm just listen. I'm talking off the top, but at the same time, I always like to give the benefit of the doubt, in a sense. That's just what they believed. It's what they were taught.
Yeah.
And they just don't know any better.
I don't think that they know any better. They're in a bubble. They don't have a lot of them don't have a choice. When you're in an environment, or you're in a town or a household that believes something,
It's almost survival.
you either buy into it
Yeah.
or you're an outcast.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about acceptance. That's what a lot of it comes from. People want to be accepted by their peers, so even if they feel differently inside, they just go along with it.
Especially
Put on the show.
Yeah, in a situation like that where you're dealing with something that could potentially be so violent and so, they're not accepting of difference. So either it's you buy in or that's really it. Like, there is
nobody
there's
wants to be an
yeah.
outcast.
No one wants to be an outcast, and when it comes to, possible physical harm coming
peer
to
pressure
you because because you're not buying into this or because you don't believe, you almost don't have a choice. You're forced into it, and it's so ingrained in you and so difficult to pull away from that when that's all there is. It's scary.
But my mind goes the exact opposite. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I mean, sure, you grew up with it. People grew up poor, they're now rich.
You should know better.
Right. So I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. As a matter of fact, because of my upbringing, when I meet a new white person, my mind instantly goes to how they're going to take me. What are they thinking right now? Like, you guys know Dave, I know Dave, so I was like, they're okay. If I see you on the street, the first thing I'm going to think of is, what's he thinking? Is he one of those? Do I got to watch out for him? It's bad. I did it to my friend's father, and I explained to him one day. We were talking about it, and I said, "Yeah, when I first met you, Bill, I assumed you were prejudiced," and he got mad at me. I'm like, I know you're not now, but when I first met you, that's how I look at you.
It's almost like a safety mechanism.
Right.
Like you gotta just you assume that they are.
Right.
As opposed to the other way to protect yourself.
Right. It's a bad, and that man today is my godfather.
That's almost something that's learned though, like from your neighbor
Right.
doing that. So now, like if a cat scratches the shit out of me, I'm gonna assume all cats are assholes.
Exactly.
Until I learn otherwise.
Right. Until you show me otherwise. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that same kind of
Right.
learned-
The kids on the block
from
messed
what
with
happened.
us. Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's again a learned environmental thing.
Right.
It's tough to break those patterns.
Right.
It really
I
is.
try. I really
then
do
comes
try.
the question: where does a person intellectually make a choice? And that's, to me, what makes the difference. And I think that it's basically, I think what I'm saying is something that's people know already. So I'm not saying anything profound here. But we got to make a choice. If you're gonna talk about something like in this level of the conversation, you got to make a conscious choice, and that's where expressions like sellout, people that go along with things because they don't want to have they don't like conflict,
That's
so they go
that's a big
along
part
with
of
the
the population.
complacency,
Mhm.
right? So I in that sense I hold people responsible. You can only make so many excuses and blame your environment, and then the other side of it is, who are you, and what do you believe? And whether you meet someone that you wind up marrying later on, that's a totally like from the other side of the world, and then all of a sudden it's like, I used to be this way and that way, and then I met this person that's a different culture altogether, and I fell in love with her. And now I think very differently. So sometimes it takes that experience, or a friend.
Yeah.
My friends growing up were, just of different backgrounds. It didn't matter, and I don't think it ever should.
You know what? I feel like life is about
Like if I
experiences.
sat here and said,
Right.
I had a black friend, I had Jewish. My best friend was Jewish. But how does that sound? You know that old thing where, I have a black friend.
Yeah, well, it makes you sound
I have
really
a
bad.
I have a Jewish friend. Right there, you're showing how prejudiced, in a sense, you are. Right? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I feel like you really just have to experience. Life's about experiences, and until you've experienced having a friend of a different ethnicity that might not be in your normal social group, you don't really understand. I didn't know what being Asian was like until I started dating an Asian person when I was younger. And then I learned about all types of racism. I always assumed there might be some white racism, which was definitely something that we experienced, but I didn't realize there's Asian on Asian racism, which is worse than any racism that
That's
not from a violence standpoint, but if you're walking down the mall and there's another group of Asians, I'd have to be Lindsay, there's another Asian coming, get ready to give her the look. I would rather know. She'd be fucking Chinese. She was Korean, and the Koreans and the Chinese are and then if you bring someone from Japan into it, forget about it. Everyone hates them. All the Asians hate the Japanese equally. It's all Asians versus the Japanese. Oh yeah.
There's some serious levels of racism.
They get their own ideas.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and I got to go to China. I have a Chinese aunt that married into my family now, so I went to China with her about 10 years ago, and I'm in a restroom in a restaurant in China, and the urinal cakes have Japanese flags on them, and it's resentment harbored from World War II.
Wow.
And this is blowing my mind. I'm this is cool still? And they're oh yeah. If you go to Japan, there's signs up that say white people aren't allowed in certain stores if the owner doesn't like white people.
Wow.
You didn't know about that? I'm oh no way.
Wow.
So there's all types of different racisms that are.
Did you say that they have
it's not so bad here.
Japanese
This is okay.
flags in the urinals?
Yeah, Japanese flags on the urinal cake holder.
So,
Right.
so when you're peeing on it.
Right, because you're peeing on them.
Yeah, so you're peeing on them.
Yeah.
I've heard it all now. I really have heard
If you
it all
Google it,
now.
I bet it'll come. I bet it'll come up if it's
Wow.
Google. But yeah.
Well,
That's
it's
the
like
thing.
the Latinos and the Spanish. How many people like Spanish people?
From Spain.
From Spain.
But that's royalty.
See, there you go.
If you're from Spain, you're royalty. You know something? I've met. Listen, all right. Now let's get down dirty. I've met some people from Spain, and they actually do feel superior.
I know.
They
I've
absolutely do.
I feel like Europeans in general
I
tend
got
to feel
nothing-
like superior.
I got nothing
They just,
against
have
them.
a air about them. that-
No, but people from, generally speaking, people from Spain don't like, or is it the other way around? I think it's the other way around. People from other countries don't generally like people from Spain in the Latino world. Because Evie, she sees somebody from Spain, because she's Colombian. She's half Colombian, half Chinese.
Now,
so
is
she
that-
gets up on both ends.
Nobody likes anybody that thinks they're better than
Right.
And if the stigma is you guys think you're better than us, then I don't like you from the minute I meet you.
Right.
You know what? I think I've heard that about the South Americans. I know that the Argentines think that they're more
Yes.
European than the rest of the country,
Right.
or the rest of the continent.
Right.
And I have my Brazilian friends. They're like, "Fuck that guy. He's Argentine.
Yeah.
We're gonna play them in soccer and we're gonna crush them."
Right. Exactly.
I think a lot of it has to do with soccer too.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with hitting someone because they're soccer team. You know?
I mean, like a lot of Africans don't like a lot of American blacks. I don't know why. I don't know what we did to them, but they don't like us.
You know what? I've actually heard that. I have a friend from Nigeria, and his parents wear like the traditional Nigerian outfits everywhere, and like I've had his parents say, "Oh, it's because I want everyone to know I'm from Africa,"
Right.
and they like want to be different. Like they're like proud of. They're from Nigeria, not even Africa, just Nigeria.
Right.
And we're better than all the other blacks because we're Nigerian.
Right.
And it's like another type of like racism that like we're just like
It blows your mind.
I didn't know that shit was real
Yeah.
either. Like
Yeah.
I don't think like because I'm from Germany, yeah, we're better than all the rest of the white people from Europe. Yeah, like forget those English or those French.
Well, the
We're
Germans
better.
never do think that, so.
Some
they
of the-
started a couple world wars. Let's be honest.
I don't know if they thought they were better, but I think that they just thought that they could take over. Like if you thought you had a shot at world domination,
You go for it, right?
You go for it.
Yeah, you go for it.
You
Yeah.
go for it. How could you turn that down?
You don't want to be that guy. Like,
That's retired. He's like in his 70s. Like I should have went for it.
Yeah.
I should have went for it.
You know what I regret? Yeah. My biggest regret.
Inevitably, at some point, within, there's going to be a divide. There's going to be a divide. There's going to be a divide economically. There's going to be a divide over religion, political values,
Everything.
and all that
Intellectual.
stuff. Everything.
There's always going to
So
be
if it's
some
not the
kind of-
color of your skin, it's going to be something else.
Yeah,
you
they'll
know?
find a way.
Yeah. I don't like the way he DJs.
He's just jealous. So,
I think we can all agree though the French.
Yeah.
I give you that one. I give you that
With delicious cheese and wine.
one. I give you that one.
And they know it.
They do know it. That's why they're so snooty all the time.
Yep.
It's nice to have the fun banter about it though. So good, so good.
Well, in that case, I'll just eat cracker and white wine.
All right, though. We're hitting about an hour and a half.
Wow.
We're not-
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. So I know
We need to do a part two.
Yeah, definitely. Love to
I was
have
going
you
to
guys
say
back.
we should. I want to have you guys back to talk about DJing a little bit. And how long have you guys been DJing? It's been a while, right?
Little bit.
Yeah. He's been, well, he's
30
old. So.
plus.
We're gonna have you come on just to talk about that. I think just because I don't know, I was a nightclub junkie in my late teens and 20s. I worked for 10 years in Manhattan, and then in the summers in the Hamptons at all like different nightclubs. And I always got like a real like nostalgic kick out of talking to like the guys that have been there and got to live through the 70s, 80s, and like early 90s because I wasn't of age until I was the late 90s.
You have Netflix?
I do.
Okay. Did you watch The Get Down?
No, but I've seen it.
Do
pop
yourself
up.
do yourself a favor and watch it.
Okay.
It's a comedy. I think it's Nas is involved in the production of it.
Okay.
Is he?
I believe it's his. He's one of the producers. I'm not 100% sure. He. It's a fictional story, but with real life characters from the 70s when hip hop first started. We say hip hop first started when it was not known as hip hop. It was
Yeah.
just a thing that was going on in the Bronx. Yay, Bronx! So if we ever get to do that,
All right, that
I can
sounds
share
good.
my experience with that
Yeah, that
because
would
I
be
grew up
awesome.
in kind of like when that was happening.
And then there's also that YouTube video, History of House, where it explains Frankie Knuckles.
Frankie Knuckles
Yeah,
going to
origins of
Chicago,
Chicago house music.
house music.
It's awesome.
And
Yeah,
I can't
Yeah.
wait because I love that's what I've done all my life, and I was there for all of it from freestyle, as has Eric. So, you know,
Awesome.
I'm sure he has a different, many different perspectives, but I love all that. So when you guys are ready,
we're gonna have you both on again. That'll
but
be
watch
awesome.
that, watch the Get Down.
No, I'm
that'll
going
give
to.
you, that'll give, that's a real good representation of kind of what happened back in the day when it all started, as far as the rap, hip hop genre started.
I got a lot of free evenings right now because my wife's pregnant. So
You
I'm not
won't be
doing
sorry.
anything. So
You won't be
we'll put this
sorry.
on. We'll put this right where we're like 2 episodes away from finishing one of her shows. So Orange is the New Black. So the next thing with the Get Down.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right, awesome. So this was great, guys, and definitely have you back on. Do you guys want to plug anything? I know you guys DJ.
Well, for all it's worth,
No, you go ahead.
Aramark Records, we just started the label.
Cool.
Released 6 tracks, I believe.
6, yeah.
6 tracks available on your favorite music store.
Beatport.
For house music, Beatport.
Amazon,
Nice.
Juno, Spotify,
It's house.
Shazam.
It's house music. So the
nice.
label's Aramark, and we do a weekly show on Mixler. Is an app. Is the website, or rather the website?
Yeah, Mixler.com.
Mixler.com hosts the app where people can listen every Saturday live.
And what do we serve? What do we
And it's
serve?
3 hours of nonstop club music.
Cool.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Nice.
I'm checking that
9
out.
o'clock every Saturday.
The Imperial
and
DJs.
It's under the label of the Imperial DJs.
Okay.
I will definitely check that out. I'm a big house kid, techno.
Not this guy.
No, I'm not.
I used to have to drag him to the clubs with me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a house music.
Yeah,
fan.
Because when I work, that's what I listen to. It's like, oh, I gotta hear him when it comes in the room.
awesome.
Yeah.
You live on the island?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I definitely did some spots, and you were probably there.
Okay.
So we'll talk. We could talk
That's
about
well,
that.
good. That sounds
all
good.
that stuff. Yeah, same thing. I was, Sound Factory, Tunnel, back in the day, all the spots like that.
Well,
And,
you're saying back in the day, but that's not.
Well,
back
yeah, I mean, it's back. I'm 35, so.
My back in the day is back in the day, and then back before that day, and before that. So there's a lot of history there. But yeah, thanks a lot for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This is awesome,
Yeah.
guys. This is
is great.
This is a lot of fun. And